How do you keep your family healthy this season when it feels like everyone around you is getting sick? I use Sambicol. It's drug-free and scientifically tested to help support your immunity. Sambicol has the power of black elderberry in every purple bottle. It comes in tablets, syrup, chewables, or my kids' favorite, the great-tasting gummies. So this cold and flu season, support your family's immunity with Sambicol Black Elderberry. It's the only one I trust for my family. And best of all, my kids love it too.
Prepare for glory!
I don't know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
I came out the womb, I was ready.
And he's hit the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump with me. Golly. Oh, they tackle him at the 40-yard line. Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, proud members of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. You can find them at FTFPodNet on Twitter. You can find me at SportsFanaticMB on Twitter, and of course you can find my co-host for the day, Mr. Matthew Fox at Nighthawk7734 on Twitter. As I mentioned, we are part of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network, which has a ton of great podcasts associated with it, some of which are Jim Day of FF Champs, Adam Ronis and Dr. Roto from Sirius XM Radio, Bob Lung of the award-winning Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, Dwayne McFarland, Blake Sullivan, and a ton of others, and you can find all of them on FullTimeFantasy.com, your one-stop shop for all of your fantasy news, advice, and strategies. We are also excited to be partnered with ExpandTheBoxScore.com. You can find them at XTBoxScore on Twitter. They have some of the best stats in the industry, including a ton of college football stats that you cannot find anywhere else. And I'm telling you, they are the best of the best when it comes to college football stats. I use them for all the stuff you see me posting on Twitter. They also have NFL and baseball and basketball stats on the way. Phenomenal website, just $15 a year for a subscription. And if you use our code ROUNDTABLE, you guys will get 10% off of that. So it is 10 times worth it, in my opinion. Great stats, help you become a better fantasy player. Check it out at expandtheboxscore.com. Matt will be jumping on here in just a minute with me. We're running a little bit earlier than usual. Matt, who lives in Colorado, obviously they have a lot of snow coming their ways. I've got some stuff going on, so we're going to run through the rest of the Week 8 games today. We'll talk about any trades or anything that go down while we're recording. Otherwise, we are going to give all of the trade breakdown on Thursday. There's already one news piece that's come down, not necessarily a trade, but a change in quarterback here that we'll talk about here right at the top of the podcast, and if any trades come through, we will definitely do that as well.
Hello!
And Matt's back with us. Matt, what's going on? How are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon?
Well, I'm glad it's beautiful for you. We're still hovering right around 20 degrees. They said absolutely would not start snowing till this afternoon, so I went out yesterday in the afternoon, shoveled 6 or 8 inches off the driveway, and wouldn't you know, snowing this morning has not stopped. The weather people, God love them. I've watched 3 different ones to get a sample, and we can expect anywhere from 0 to 12 inches tonight. So, a real tight range to plan for.
Well, I say beautiful here. I was being semi-sarcastic. It's not quite as bad as that, but it's rainy and like 40 degrees here, so it's not beautiful, but clearly better than what you guys have going on. I know we were talking off-air yesterday about my parents having to go back up there. They just made it up there a couple hours ago, so I'm glad they got there before it gets really bad, because it does sound like you guys are in for some serious weather here in the next couple days. Let's see here. I mean, speaking of serious weather, we saw a ton of games this past weekend have to deal with the rain, and that is what we are going to do today. We're going to, my goodness. Whew, this NFL season just got me that choked up. We were going to talk about NFL trades, as I said on the podcast yesterday, but due to the weather Matt has going on, as I mentioned earlier, and then stuff I have, we're going to run through the rest of the games here, and then we'll do definitely trade stuff. We'll focus an entire episode on Thursday to that. Just want to give everybody a heads up now. If anything goes down while we're talking about the games, we'll go ahead and jump in and break it down, but expect full breakdowns on Thursday's episode. So let's jump in and finish talking about the games we did not get to yesterday.
First and 10 at the Lions 29, and Prescott goes screen right. Elliott down the right side to the 25, to the 20, to the 10. Elliott to the pylon. Zeke Elliott, touchdown. 38 on the screen.
Second down at 10, takes the snap, gives it. Chubb runs, he's in the 15, he's in the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's in the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Chubba Lubba Hub. 92 yards.
Left. Marshawn Lattimore, 12 yards from Adam. Case on a deep drop, steps up in the pocket. He'll fire to the right side, caught by Diggs. Stay up! Oh my God! Oh my God! 30! No! 10! Touchdown! Are you kidding me? It's a Minneapolis miracle! Stephon Diggs and the Minnesota Vikings have walked up on the New Orleans Saints. It's a 61-yard Minneapolis miracle.
The first one up is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams, which, wouldn't you know it, some news dropped just before we started recording on that Andy Dalton has now been benched and that Ryan Finley is now going to be the starter for the Bengals moving forward. Interesting decision, I guess. I do think there's a chance Andy Dalton ends up getting traded. I don't know if this changes much for their offense. I actually liked Ryan Finley. I own him in a couple super flex leagues, so I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't think that changes much for them this year. What about you, Matt? Think any changes anything for Mixon, Boyd, or Tate moving forward?
No, not really. Andy Dalton, we all like to make fun of him, and, he may not be a world-winning quarterback, but he's hardly the problem on offense for the Bengals. You have Joe Mixon back there, can't run for anything. Dalton in a good game got sacked 5 times. Had no turnovers on Sunday, rating of 86. I mean, he's doing his best. They've actually put up some decent passing numbers. They have no line. They haven't had AJ Green all season, so I understand the Bengals wanting to maybe get a look at Finley and see if he could be the future.
Yeah.
I think we all think Andy's probably not their long-term future. But a little bit of a tough break. It's not like with some of the other guys that we've seen that got benched, like Mariota for performance issues or Eli for performance issues.
Yeah.
Andy hasn't played that badly. He's just on a bad team.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness to Andy, as you just said, he hasn't played that badly. And in all honesty, he really has never had that good of a team around him. Even when they had a lot of pieces, they were running that kind of Marvin Lewis, Hugh Jackson offense, and we've seen that maybe those were not quite as good of coaches as we thought they were. I mean, Marvin Lewis did have a lot of winning seasons, but just really wasn't able to do anything with them. So Andy Dalton likely, whether it's traded or at the end of this year, is no longer going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. He did go 32 of 52 with 329 yards and 1 touchdown on Sunday to come in as QB 13 with 28.16 points. Joe Mixon, RB 12 with 17.7 points, 66 yards on 17 carries, and added 11 yards on 4 catches and a touchdown. Alex Erickson comes in again as the best wide receiver for the Bengals, 15.7 points, 97 yards on 6 catches. Tyler Boyd, wide receiver 26 with 12.8 points, 65 yards on 6 catches. Tyler Eifert has himself a pretty good game, 74 yards on 6 catches to come in at tight end 8 with 13.4 points. And then Auden Tate on the rise here. Wide receiver 33 with 11.5 points, 65 yards on 5 catches, out-targeted everybody by a pretty decent margin in this game as well with 13. So as we just talked about, obviously Dalton to the bench, Finley in. We already talked about, obviously, this possibly have any upside for the offense. What about if AJ Green gets traded? I honestly feel if Green moves on, that helps his value and Auden Tate's upside as well. Because I really feel like if Green comes back, Auden Tate's going to kind of be moved back more toward that wide receiver 3, where I think he's really kind of moved in behind Boyd, even though Erickson's been having a good couple weeks. Are you believing in Erickson? Or are you believing in Tate? How are you seeing this wide receiver core shake out?
Actually, I think with the quarterback change, given their issues on the offensive line, everybody takes a big step back for at least a few weeks. Because no matter how ready Finley might be, he's not played in an NFL game, and you're behind a really suspect offensive line. I mean, Joe Mixon had his best day of the season on Sunday, and he mustered 66 yards on 17 carries and had 4 catches for 11 yards. I think there's going to be some big growing pains. Obviously, Erickson's a guy I put out and started last week. Tate, too. I think there's been value because they've been behind and had to throw in garbage time. You probably need to see what it looks like with Ryan Finley back there for a couple weeks before you feel confident of anyone.
Yeah, and let's see here. I was trying to get their schedule to hurry up and pull up, and my phone is taking forever to see. They have got the Ravens this week, so not an easy matchup. Do have the Raiders and then the Steelers after that, so Raiders definitely a better matchup than the Steelers. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like obviously you do have to downgrade expectations a little bit. I still like Tate's long-term value. I think he's really kind of proven this year that he can be a good wide receiver in the NFL and for fantasy. So that's why I said the AJ Green thing. I really think if they moved him would help out Tate, because he will get kind of relegated more toward, I don't want to say a bench role, but get a lesser kind of workload here with AJ Green coming back, because we all know he is a Pro Bowl wide receiver.
Well, and you have to wonder what, we've all been waiting for kind of that Tyler Boyd breakout. He's been okay, but not what we thought he might be based on what we were seeing last year. So it's really hard to tell. And, who is Finley going to have rapport with? Maybe a guy like an Erickson does better right off the bat because he was in like the second and third team until recently.
Yeah.
So, kind of some questions surrounding that. They have a bye week to work on getting that in place, and then, home for the Ravens. So, out of the frying pan into the fire. The Ravens definitely made some improvements when they got Marcus Peters, kind of has shorn up that back end a little bit. Yeah. So no doubt they're going to be coming for the rookie. I just think it's going to take a couple games to figure out what he's like as a pro.
Yeah, and on the Boyd discussion, I feel like Boyd's just kind of shown us who he is. He's just a wide receiver too. He gets a lot of catches and he does a very good job. He's got a good catch reception or good catch percentage. He gets a lot of receptions and yards. He just doesn't give you that many touchdowns. I feel like we all hyped him up. I don't know necessarily you, and a lot of us in the industry, including myself, hyped him up with Green going down. Hey, he can be that wide receiver 1. I think we just have to accept him for what he is. He's a middle to low end wide receiver 2. He's going to get you yards. He's going to get you catches and PPR, which is going to help you out. He's just not going to put up a lot of touchdowns. I think maybe we've just seen what he is, and maybe we thought more would come with Green going down, and he's shown us that that's just not going to happen. We just need to probably believe what we've seen at this point. I think is a fair assessment to make on him. Not a bad player, but just not quite what we thought he could be, and maybe we overhyped him, I guess is a fair way to put it. On the Rams side here, Jared Goff, 17-31, 372 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, to come in as QB9 with 31.13 points. Todd Gurley was a huge disappointment in my opinion this week. 44 yards on 10 carries and a touchdown. Did not do really, or did nothing in the receiving game. Came in as RB25 with 10.4 points. I thought he would be RB1 on the week with as bad as the Bengals had been against the run. Cooper Kupp, though, dominated this game. Actually beat out Isaac Bruce's record for most receiving yards in a game. 7 catches, 220 yards, and a touchdown. To come in as wide receiver 2 with 35 points. And then Josh Reynolds, wide receiver 18 with 16.2 points, 3 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Robert Woods, pretty non-existent in this one, just 36 yards on 2 catches. Brandon Cooks out early. Unfortunately got another concussion and then got knocked out of this game. Really, for me, not much to mention. I mean, obviously, as I said, Gurley, a huge disappointment for me. Kupp has another great game. Really does seem to be the guy that Josh, I don't know why I was going to call him Josh Goff. Jared Goff likes to go to, whenever he can. Gerald Everett, though, continues to drop a little bit. Me and you have both talked about we weren't sure that he could stay up there in that top 12 ranking. Another bad game for him. Are you starting to, I know you were never on to begin with, are you jumping off, though, the Everett bandwagon, or you think just a couple bad games and he'll bounce back next week?
I think the Rams are kind of hard to figure out a little bit. I mean, it's going to be a bummer, obviously, if you have Cooks with this many concussions. You figure he misses some time, but it didn't really help Robert Woods any when Cooks went out Josh Reynolds kind of comes in and is the one that gets a couple of big plays.
Yeah,
I
tell me
actually
about
played Everett on Sunday, so I was kind of, out of desperation and bye weeks. It's kind of disappointing to see. Only 3 targets, wasn't a huge part of the game plan. The Rams are starting to get to be one of those teams where it's feeling like this year you don't know who's going to get the targets. They must be working more on matchups. So I wasn't high on Everett continuing toward the end of the season. This is kind of a down game, but I mean, he could come back, 2 weeks from now and catch 2 touchdowns. It's really, I don't know if I would put him in that range where you're happy to play him, but given the state of the position and some of the bye weeks and injuries, he's a guy you could put in there and get a pleasant surprise too.
Yeah, I think for me now, it's almost moving to Kupp is the only one you feel comfortable starting. I mean, I know he had 2 bad games in there, but for the most part, he's been really good. I mean, I had Robert Woods going, and trust me, we're about to get into another game where I tried to get a little bit too cute, and it cost me in a pretty pivotal matchup that I needed to win this week, and that was with Chase Edmonds and the Cardinals. So the Cardinals end up losing to the Saints 9-31. Just a bad game for the Cardinals here. Kyler Murray goes 19-33, 220 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 13 rushing yards, QB 26 with 14.85 points. Chase Edmonds, RB 57 with 3.3 points in this one, just 8 yards on 7 carries. Did hurt his hamstring early and got pulled, added 5 yards in the receiving game. Christian Kirk, though, comes back finally since I think week 1, has a good game, 79 yards on 8 catches to come in at wide receiver 16 with 17 points. And then Charles Clay, tight end 9 with 11 points, 88 yards on 3 catches. And this is where I got cute. I saw that David Johnson was going to be out, and I threw Chase Edmonds in over Devin Singletary. Would you have done that? Now, obviously, hindsight's 2020. We know Devin Singletary had a much better day than Chase Edmonds. But going into the weekend, would you have done the same thing, seeing what we'd seen out of Chase Edmonds the past couple weeks?
I did the same thing.
Okay, well, see, yeah, so it cost me. So, like last night, I hate to go off on a tangent on my own fantasy team, but I needed 38.3 points from the Steelers defense and JuJu Smith-Schuster, and I got 37.5. So I ended up losing by fraction points there to a team that I would have ended up being now 4-4 and sitting in the 6th spot in the playoffs. Instead, I dropped to 3-5 and all the way down to 9. Still time left, but that was very frustrating knowing I had Singletary in, and literally, I would say it was like 10 o'clock Sunday morning, I was like, nah, you know what? We're throwing in Edmonds. He's going to have a good game against the Saints defense, even though I knew the Saints were very good against the run and bad against the pass, and I did it anyways.
But so are the Eagles. I mean,
yeah,
Singletary didn't. It's not like Singletary had a plus matchup, and you're like, oh. But I mean, as soon as they declared David Johnson out, it seemed like for sure Edmonds was the play, because we've seen, the Arizona running back have value catching passes, running the ball, and Edmonds, coming off of a 3-touchdown performance, has been involved in the passing game. I mean, you can't predict injuries. If he doesn't get hurt, what does the game look like?
That's true. That is true.
Better. So I still not, and if Singletary doesn't get that swing pass and turn it into a 20-yard touchdown, his day is not that incredible either. So
right. But it's just
I still think
better.
I would make the same decision with the information we had at the time. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I know. It's just frustrating. What's even more frustrating, and I hate to put it this way, is just the Yahoo settings, and maybe that's my fault, but they have the 1-day review period stuff, and I'd actually submitted a trade to trade away Chase Edmonds on Saturday morning to get Todd Gurley. And it was I was trading away Chase Edmonds and Curtis Samuel and Ricky Seals-Jones because the guy needed a running back, wide receiver, and a tight end. I was like, okay, give me all that and give me Todd Gurley. And he accepted it, but because we didn't do the trade until I think it was like 12:10, it didn't go through in time for the games to start, so then I had to keep Chase Edmonds in my lineup. Had I had Todd Gurley, it was an automatic win right there because obviously he outproduced Edmonds. So it's just very frustrating all around knowing that, I mean, there's other decisions obviously that could end up costing me a playoff spot, but knowing I could be sitting in the 6th spot right now feels a whole lot better than sitting in the 9th spot because now I got to make up ground, and it's very frustrating. But Really on the Cardinals side here, I mean, we already know, as we talked about yesterday, Edmonds out for a couple weeks, Kenyon Drake in. We still have not heard any more news on DJ and if it is more serious. But you're likely getting at least Kenyon Drake's going to be the starter and the workhorse this Thursday for the Cardinals.
We talked about they have the 49ers Thursday night, and they have them twice in the next 3 weeks. I actually think the Cardinals as an offense I'm fading altogether for a couple of weeks because they've had some struggles the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Murray has been okay, but hardly dynamic. He's not really found a lot of room to run. I think people are starting to defend him better, and he's facing some better defenses. So, even poor Larry Fitz hasn't been reliable the last couple weeks. The Charles Clay 3 for 88 is the prime reason why it's hard to trust any of the receivers in Arizona. They're doing too many things, having too many injuries. Kenyon Drake coming in trying to learn the air raid in 2 days, and then he's going to go face the 49ers, who we saw just crush in the Carolina Panthers. No, I want no part of that.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you was Christian Kirk. He's the only one that's intriguing to me. We saw, obviously, him and Kyler Murray had a great connection in week 1, and he produced, has been injured since, comes back this week, and actually has a really good game. But I was going to say, even for me, I don't think I'm playing him this week against that San Francisco 49ers secondary because they are very good.
Feels like he's more likely to get Richard Sherman.
Yeah. And so that's why, I mean, you look at, I'm actually watching, I've got NFL Network on in the background, and they're talking about the matchup of Kyler Murray and Bosa. I honestly think with as good as that defensive line is that we've talked about now here for the past couple weeks, they're going to be having Murray running around so much. I'm with you. I think I avoid the entire the entire Cardinals offense at least this Thursday, because I don't see any of them doing a whole lot anything. On the Saints side, though, their offense kind of, well, I shouldn't say came alive, because Teddy Bridgewater has actually played really good in Breeze's stead, but Breeze comes back 1 week before the bye to kind of prove to everybody he can still do it. 34-43, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, comes in as QB3 with 39.42 points. Latavius Murray continues to prove he can be a very good back when given the ball. 21 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown, adds 55 yards on 9 catches, and a touchdown to come in as running back 3 on the week with 36.7 points. And then Michael Thomas continues to ball out regardless of who is throwing him the ball. 112 yards on 11 catches and 1 touchdown, caught all 11 of his targets, which is just ridiculous. And is actually, and I hate to bring this up, because I feel like I'm going to jinx him, because I brought it up last year as well. He is on pace right now to break Marvin Harrison's most receptions in a season record right now. He's, I believe, 6 ahead of him going into this point, and we brought this up a lot earlier last year because he did kind of tail off, but he's already going still through. We're about to head into week 9 now, so doing a lot better with that. I'm hoping for it because I love Michael Thomas as a phenomenal wide receiver. Outside of that, though, I just feel like those are the 3 guys. I mean, you sub in Kamara for Murray when Kamara comes back. You think Kamara takes a step forward now with Breeze being back in the lineup?
Yeah, I think just being healthy will help him. You know, he's been out, I think, the last 2 games and having a bye week. Yeah, obviously, I'm thinking some of the production we saw was because he wasn't totally healthy. The bigger question to me is we've seen Latavius Murray really come on in this offense. Is it going to be more like what we saw with Ingram and Kamara on the back end of last year? I think Latavius Murray has played so well. We thought coming into the season he'd have value. He's played so well. They don't really have a wide receiver 2 or tight end, that's really threatening. I'm wondering if the fantasy plays are, Kamara, Thomas, Breeze are starts, and then Murray is your best flex option.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we all talked about when the season started, and he did get some workload with Breeze there, and then obviously once Breeze went down, it completely shifted. And so maybe we see more of that with Breeze coming back. There's really no way. I think, obviously they have the bye this week in week 9. When week 10 rolls around, if they announce Kamara's playing, I would not feel comfortable throwing Murray in my flex until we see what that workload looks like. But I think with what he's shown over the past couple weeks, I don't see how you cannot implement him into your game plan. They've done it before. He's proven he can do it. I think you've got to figure out a way to, maybe not a 50-50 work share, but maybe a 60-40 in Kamara's favor kind of thing, because Murray is definitely talented and can do work when he's given the ball. Next up, we've got the New York Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jets losing 15-29. Not only did Jacksonville win this game, but their troll of Sam Darnold playing the Ghostbusters theme song and all that stuff in their mascot dressing up as a ghost, I thought was just phenomenal. I mean, I kind of feel bad for Sam Darnold at this point. The Sammy goes 21-30, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions that come in at QB 18 with 21.8 points. Le'Veon Bell continues to struggle here. RB40 with 6.4 points, 23 yards on 9 carries, and just 3 catches for 12 yards. There are rumors that he might be traded. Probably would be the best thing for him at this point. Just based on it, just seems like Adam Gase just cannot get him involved in the offense. I think the bigger issue is Adam Gase, but that's just me. Robbie Anderson, wide receiver 37 with 11.3 points, 43 yards on 4 catches. Demaryius Thomas actually has a decent game here, 63 yards, 5 catches, but the big star, Ryan Griffin, 66 yards on 4 catches and 2 touchdowns. I really think that means when Herndon comes back, which he should be back this week, week 9, fire him up. Obviously, like Ryan Griffin, he's a very good tight end, but Chris Herndon is by far the better offensive weapon. And what we've seen Ryan Griffin do the past couple weeks with Sam Darnold now having Herndon back in there, I think Herndon easily moves back into that top 12 tight end territory. What do you think about him? And then, what do you think about the Gase dynamic? Because I know obviously a lot of people were excited. I shouldn't say a lot of people. I know people who were excited about him going to New York thinking he was going to be a quarterback whisperer. You obviously had him as an offensive coordinator there in Denver for a while with Peyton Manning. I just think a lot of this has to fall on his head. What are your thoughts on Gase and this Jets offense?
Yeah, I mean, this year's been a disaster. I know there was a lot of talk that he wasn't high on them signing Bell during the offseason, but you have a dynamic talent like that. You can't figure out how to get him the ball. Can't really figure out how to get Anderson the ball. Seems to want to trade him. Crowder is what he is. I'm not sold that Chris Herndon comes back and is awesome. He was a product, and his success was a product of the old regime. We have never seen him play with Gase. Ryan Griffin, somebody they added in the offseason, he's played pretty well the last couple of games. I wouldn't just assume that Herndon gets a spot back and takes all the snaps either. This Jets offense is probably a stay away until we can see something. Who's the real? What Sam Darnold are we going to get? The guy that looked decent opening day against Buffalo, the guy that destroyed the Dallas Cowboys, or the guy that got destroyed by the Jacksonville Jaguars? I mean, I understand falling apart against the Patriots. He's in good company there, but this game, this gives me a huge moment of pause.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I doubt they fire him after this year. There's a lot of coaches right now that are being talked about being fired after their first year. Him and Kitchens are both in that discussion. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think it's insane to think that he has roster control and is the head coach, because I would not be surprised if we don't see a bunch of players shipped out of there. And again, as you were talking about, they were right there with the Browns getting all that hype about possibly being a team that could be playoff contenders or be a wild card contender, because you knew they weren't going to win the East with the Patriots being there outside of like a Tom Brady injury. So a lot of thoughts that they could be in the playoffs, and then now they could be in full sell-off mode is ridiculous to think about.
Well, and Gase maybe got a pass at the beginning of the season because Darnold having mono. You didn't get to see his team. They were missing pieces. But the last couple of weeks, they just consistently look unprepared. And, Demaryius Thomas might be the best play for them among wide receivers. He seemed to have the most steady floor, which is shocking.
Oh, yeah, definitely. On the Jaguars side here, so Minshew gets it done again, 22-34, 279 yards and 3 touchdowns, comes in at QB6 with 35.46 points, added 28 yards rushing. Leonard Fournette continues to ball out. I hope this kid stays healthy all year, because he has just been phenomenal. I think I've said it before and I'll say it again, is really bringing back that value everybody thought they were getting from him when they took him 1-1 a couple years ago. 76 yards on 19 carries, added 60 yards on 7 catches to come in as RB10 with 20.6 points. Chris Conley and DJ Chark get it done here. Conley, 103 yards on 4 catches and a touchdown. Oh, I didn't even realize Chark had a touchdown. Even better. DJ Chark, 79 yards on 6 catches and a touchdown, which I called on Friday's podcast. I said he was going to have a bunch of catches, good yards, and a touchdown. Bounce back game for him. I am glad he did. Trade just went down, so we'll talk about that here in just a second. DJ Chark comes in as wide receiver 10, I think, with 19.9 points. On the Jag side here, I mean, really, the only thing I want to talk about is Chris Conley. We've seen him now have a couple good games here. Is he moving into flex territory for you? Because I really feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you don't feel this way, I feel like Chark has definitely moved into at least wide receiver 2 value every single week, if not low-end wide receiver 1. Fournette's an automatic play. Minshew, I think, can easily be talked about right now as a top 15-ish quarterback, so he's in your lineup based on your other quarterbacks. What about Conley? Because he's had a couple good weeks. Is he moving toward, or are you already throwing him in your flex territory now?
I think Conley has been, especially this week, was the product of Westbrook getting knocked out. Because we had seen pretty consistently Westbrook and Chark for several weeks kind of leading the targets. It looked like Conley kind of stepped into that role. So he's probably their wide receiver 3. The question is, what is the wide receiver 3 worth in Jacksonville week to week? He's probably a real boomer bust flex. The last couple of weeks we've seen where he's gotten big points. It's been thanks to a big play and a touchdown, or at least a touchdown. So, I don't know if I would confidently be rolling him out there, but we are hitting that point in the season where injuries and bye weeks start to make your lineup decisions unappealing.
Yeah.
So there are worse people to put out with a wish or a prayer. And especially if we see that Westbrook's going to be out this week, then I think you have a lot more confidence in what you might get from him.
All right, before we move on to the Browns-Patriots game, the trade that has gone down, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. The Rams have traded Aqib Talib and a 5th-round pick to Miami for a future pick. That future pick has not been announced yet. Just quick thoughts on that, Matt?
Has to be a salary dump, because Aqib Talib's on IR.
Gotcha. I was going to say
he's in the last year of his deal. He's injured. They're essentially giving Miami a 5th-round pick to eat a salary, I guess. That's Mike Clay
that
called it a salary dump. I got to figure that's what it is.
Some more news that just broke, not a necessary trade, but that Jamal Adams' name is being talked about quite openly now on the market. So that would be huge, I think, if he ends up getting moved. And yeah, I'm seeing now that a lot of talk is they're doing it to hopefully re-sign Jalen Ramsey. So if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense there. Alright, so the Browns and Patriots, I was hoping we'd have a lot more breaking news so we could just avoid this game altogether. Cleveland loses 13-27. It's been a miserable year. It's ridiculous. Baker, 20 of 31, 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, coming at QB 22 with 20.6 points. Nick Chubb could have had a much better day if he didn't fumble the ball twice. 131 yards on 20 carries, did add 1 catch for 7 yards, RB 25, 10.8 points. Jarvis Landry continues to be the best wide receiver in Cleveland for some reason. Wide receiver 35 with 11.5 points, 65 yards on 5 catches. Odell 52 yards on 5 catches to come in at wide receiver 40 with 10.2 points. And Demetrius Harris shows up here with the touchdown. Just won the 1 touchdown, 33 yards on 2 catches. I mean, I put on here, it's over for the Browns, and not even over with a chance to come back. It's OVA, baby. It's over. Browns are done, in my opinion. 3 turnovers on 3 consecutive drives was just bad. I mean, Chubb, 1 fumble, the other one just get chased down by a safety and fumbled on it. It was like an 80-yard run, too, which is just demoralizing. And then the Browns pulling off the whole water boy play where he just throws the ball right to the defender and then tries to chase down after him. Just ridiculous. I don't even know what to say about the Browns anymore. It's therapeutic for me to just break things at my house now with them playing the way that they are. The big question I have for you, because I cannot be objective when it comes to the Browns, is after everything we've seen now, we're about to go into week 9. Is there any chance Odell ever brings back a top 12 wide receiver production the rest of this year? Because I honestly feel like he's dropped down into wide receiver 3 territory, which is insane, imagining the talent that he has and the fact that he's going to or came to Cleveland with a quarterback we expected to be 10 times better than Manning, and it just has not produced anything.
Well, I think we won't really be able. I think finishing top 12 feels like it's going to be a long shot at this point in time. They're obviously rolling their best coverage to him, and Cleveland has a lot of problems getting some of these big plays done. The next 2 weeks with Denver, where he'll likely see Harris, and Buffalo, which has a pretty solid pass defense, hard to imagine that's going to be a whole lot better for him. But if he really explodes in the last 7 or so games, you could see him get back up into that range.
Yeah.
I think we had wondered if there was too many mouths to feed. My question for you is, we've passed kind of a key mile marker for the Browns, or we're coming up on it. Do you think we see them start mixing in Kareem Hunt? Because I had thought earlier this season, if Chubb was cooking along and they were going with their offense, there wasn't going to be a big need to throw him out there. But they have struggled so much, and they may, the next 2 games aren't even a lock. Sunday, I think you and I, it's going to be the Depression Bowl. We'll just crack open a couple of cold ones and start texting each other, crying emojis. But
it's going to be which team decides to lose that game, because I don't think either one's going to win it. It's going to be who loses the game, I feel like, is what's going to happen on Sunday.
Well, the good news is for Denver, you're facing Blake Bortles' career backup.
So here's the thing.
Because he was a third stringer behind Bortles in Jacksonville, then went to the Rams, where he was the third stringer behind Blake Bortles.
Right.
For the Rams. So, I feel like that means Bortles is on his way to Denver, because that's our trajectory.
Well, see, here's my thing, because that's what my dad said yesterday, too, because we were talking before he left. He's like, well, at least we only have to play Brandon Allen this week. I'm like, yeah, but the defense isn't the problem, Dad. Our defense has been wonderful. It's our offense can't score on anybody. You could throw my JV high school team out there right now, and Baker's throwing picks and fumbling the ball. And Denver has a great defense, so that's what I'm afraid of. I mean, granted, yes, Brandon Allen hasn't played, but Baker's turning the ball over like it's Halloween. He's throwing out candy to everybody. All it takes is Chris Harris to get a pick and return for a touchdown. Denver wins the game. Or Von Miller get a strip sack. I'm not sold in one bit that they're going to pull this off.
I mean, to me, that's the real question. Then do they start looking at Kareem Hunt like a guy that might give us a spark?
Yeah.
And what does that do? Obviously, tough look for Nick Chubb on Sunday. For a while there, I think they were classifying it as 3 fumbles in a row. They changed the one to being an interception on Mayfield.
Well, he did technically throw it right fair to him. So,
but Cleveland, you have to wonder too: is this going to be a team that's crushed its fans' soul for 9 weeks and ends up, 2-7 or 3-6, and then all of a sudden goes on a tear at the end of the season and just misses the playoffs again?
So here's the thing. I could honestly see that happening, and that's what sucks, because I was going back and forth with a Browns fan on Twitter about it the other day, saying kind of something that we've talked about before, that we knew the first part of their schedule was going to be tough. But once they got past this game, it's extremely easy moving forward. You really, after this game, which again, we're helped now too with Flacco not being out there. You have a phenomenal defense
next
you're
2
facing.
weeks, because you have Buffalo after.
Right. Well,
Denver.
so
I actually think Buffalo's tougher than.
Well, the reason I'm comparing the two of them is because of their defenses. I think with the Browns defense, with what I was saying, with Brandon Allen being there now, gives me some confidence, because I feel like if they can get some turnovers, maybe give the Browns short fields, they can end up doing something. They at least have a kicker who can kick field goals now. And I would say the same thing for the Bills. The Bills, their defense, although it did get lit up last week, I'm not going to read too much into that. Defense is phenomenal, but their offense, I feel like, can be stopped. And I feel like the Browns defense could get to them. So I feel like, I think they're going to be close games, but they're winnable. My fear is they're going to win a bunch of games now against teams that they should beat. And even if they end up sneaking into the playoffs, we're all going to read too much into it, where this is not the team we thought it was going to be.
Because literally, you guys have Dolphins, 2 Bengals, and a Cardinals. That should be 4 wins.
Should be
2 with the Steelers. Could go either way. And Ravens, you already beat them once, so
and now we
getting them at home, you can't feel afraid. I mean, it's possible. After Buffalo, that you win the last 7.
Yeah,
but AFC wise, if you're in that 8-9 win range, is that enough to get in? That's the question.
That'll be close, but the one thing I'll say is the Ravens have not played any of these teams that the Browns have played at the beginning part of the season. Like the Ravens get the Patriots this weekend. So it also could be, because something a lot of people I feel like have kind of forgotten about with the Ravens is that when they actually played some really good teams, they struggled. Now they beat Seattle last week, and I'll give them that. They were really good against Seattle 2 weeks ago. And they handled that. So maybe they're on the up and up. I still think the Browns have a chance, but I don't think they would do anything if they got into the playoffs, because as I was saying, I just don't think this team is what we thought it was going to be. They're beating up on bad teams, and when it comes to playing mediocre or good teams, they're just not winning. I mean, yes, I know they beat Baltimore, but I also felt like that was just kind of the rails kind of came off for Baltimore as well. They kind of took it to them early, and they stepped on their throats, which they didn't do against Seattle. But a lot of people forget they were up. It was like 20-3 in that first quarter, or in the first half, and then they let Seattle come back into it. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's scary.
The trouble, I think, when you're looking at Cleveland, it's not that they played a hard schedule, because you knew they were going to play a hard schedule, and it was possible they'd be under 500 or struggle record-wise. It's what you've seen of them playing on the field that it makes it hard to have faith. Had they been playing lights out and losing these tough games because of a tough schedule, you're like, well, we're about to turn the corner. Sometimes they haven't even appeared to be in the game. They took themselves out of this one against the Patriots, because the Patriots, in my opinion, their offense looked somewhat flaccid.
Yes.
If they didn't have 2019 fantasy football MVP Patriots defense special teams, I don't know, where this game goes for them.
Well, I think that's, in all honesty, the Browns' biggest problem, and that's where I think a lot of it falls on Freddie Kitchens, is that the team has been beating itself. You go back to the Rams game that they could have won that Monday night. Horrible play calling in the fourth quarter, and they had a chance to take the win. They've multiple turnovers. I gave up on figuring out how many penalties they've had against themselves this year, because it's just been ridiculous. They've been the league leaders for a while, and I think they talked about it I was either listening to somebody talk about it on the radio yesterday, they were talking about it on the broadcast. I think the next closest team in penalties is double digits away from the Browns. That's how bad they have been in penalties this year. So they're just playing undisciplined football, and they're beating themselves, because realistically, they have been in every single game, and they themselves have been beating themselves. So it's like I said, I'm not getting my hopes up anymore. In fact, I'm going to start picking against them every week, and maybe that'll help reverse the JuJu or something. But it's been bad and terrifying. But to answer the long way to get back around to your Kareem Hunt discussion, I honestly don't know, because I honestly feel like the past couple weeks, I've said it before, I think Nick Chubb has by far been the best player on the Browns team, offense and defensively. So I don't know what that means for Kareem Hunt. I don't know if they do try and squeeze him in there to give a spark, because if you really look at it, Dontrell Hilliard's been getting a fair amount of work. I don't know if they just kind of plug him into the Hilliard spot and let Hilliard just kind of be a kick returner, or what they do, but that Week 10 matchup is going to be huge, because we will clearly see, I think, that'll be his first game that he's allowed to play. I wonder if they throw him out there a lot, or if they start easing him in, but that'll be something I'm clearly going to watch to see what they do for Hunt, because Chubb has been, for the most part, phenomenal all season long. So that really could hurt us as fantasy owners in the playoffs if he does come back, where I was someone who didn't think that was going to happen. I felt you could draft Chubb, and easily he's going to be the guy. Maybe Hunt gets 30% of the work, and you're right, with them maybe needing a spark on offense, I would not be surprised if it moves more to a 50-50 workload.
Well, and with him only being on a 1-year contract, it's not like they're saving him to see what they can do next year if they don't try to trade him, which doesn't look like they are. You have to figure they must have some kind of plan of using him.
Yeah. Well, they can pick up his, he has an option that they can pick up in the offseason, and I think that's what I've always said I thought they were going to do, was try and pick up that option, because I can't remember how much it is, but it's not a lot, and then try and trade him and see if anybody bites on trying to take him for a year, because it'd only be a year option, and trying to get something out of it, maybe like a 3rd round pick or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I wouldn't, that, like I said, that Week 10 matchup is something I'm going to watch very closely, because I do own Chubb in a couple leagues, and I feel like that's really going to determine whether or not I'm going to be able to play him or have as high hopes for him as I had hoped when I drafted him early in a lot of drafts. But let's get on the Patriots side here, as we've kind of ignored them. Not that they really did much in this game, but Tom Brady, 20 of 36, 259 yards and 2 touchdowns to come in as QB 14, 27.36 points. James White, 4 yards on 2 carries, but adds 4 catches for 75 yards to come in at RB 23 with 11.9 points. Sony Michel disappoints in this one. RB 38 with 7.4 points. just 74 yards on 21 carries, so not a bad day overall, just couldn't get that touchdown. But Julian Edelman just rocks out in this game. 78 yards, 8 catches, and 2 touchdowns. The clear MVP. We did see Rex Burkhead come in here a little bit. I don't think really hurt Sony Michel that much. He was out there on a couple drives, which obviously sucked. I was watching that game for the most part, and someone who owns Sony Michel in a couple of leagues, but I'm not necessarily worried about Burkhead, are you? Because I feel like he's going to hurt Michel more than anybody else. So what are your takes on kind of trusting Michel moving forward?
No, I mean, I still believe in Michel. I think we've seen the Patriots are going to use 3 running backs per game no matter what. When Burkhead was out, Brandon Bolden was out there catching passes, getting runs. The Patriots are going to use a committee for different purposes at running back. Michel still seems to be the primary rusher. White still seems to be the primary pass catcher. And then they're mixing other people in. Wide receiver situation is probably the most curious. The Patriots at various points have tried Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, and Demaryius Thomas. Now they got Mohamed Sanu, and still the best receivers, the most bankable ones they've had all season are Julian Edelman, who's always been there, and Philip Dorsett, who just keeps plugging along.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Sanu does. He honestly didn't do much of anything. He showed up in a couple key points in this game, but not much to write home about. So I'm with you. Obviously, Julian Edelman is the guy you trust no matter what, but I think Dorsett's probably that next best guy until we see if they have anything else more planned for Sanu. And they were also talking about trying to trade for another wide receiver. So that'll be interesting to see if they do that. The last afternoon game we've got here, Oakland Raiders versus the Houston Texans. Raiders losing 24-27. Derek Carr, 18-30, 285 yards and 3 touchdowns to come in as QB7 with 33.9 points. Josh Jacobs struggled a little bit in this one, 66 yards on 15 carries, just 15 yards on 2 catches to come in as RB28 with 10.10 points. Hunter Renfrow has himself a day, though. Catches all 4 of his targets for 88 yards and a touchdown. Tyrell Williams, 3 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. Renfrow, wide receiver 14 with 18.8 points. Williams, wide receiver 15 with 18.1 points. And then Darren Waller, struggles a little bit, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on him. Does get 8 targets, so the most out of the entire team, but just gets 2 catches for 11 yards and a touchdown to come in as tight end 13 with 9.1 points. On the Raiders side here, so personally, I'm not really reading much into the whole Renfrow thing. I think it was just a good game for him, probably matchup based. He's not someone I'm really looking for on the waiver wire or anything. But Tyrell Williams being back, I know that Waller got more targets than anybody else, but do you think Williams being back affected Waller a little bit, or no? You think it was just kind of he didn't get his catches?
I think it was just kind of a bad game and game flow. He still got 8 targets, just wasn't able to haul a lot of them in. Does get the touchdown, gets a couple. I think we'll see better days from him. Same thing for Jacobs, who was kind of on the injury report all week. There was a lot of questions whether he was even going to be active. I think he was okay, but they probably limited him a little bit. We saw a little bit more DeAndre Washington. So those kind of things happen. I don't think I would necessarily read much into either of those players, but Williams, seems to continue to be solid when he's out there.
Yeah.
Seems to be in the mix for TDs, and is quietly having quite a season.
Yeah, I think now that he's back, he easily plugs right back into that wide receiver 2 territory. He looked really good coming out there that first game back. Hopefully, as someone who's dealt with plantar fasciitis before, it's not a fun injury to deal with. So as long as he's good and can be out there, I'm firing him up every single week. And I'm with you. I don't think it necessarily affected Waller. I think he'll be fine moving forward again. He had more targets than everybody else. I did not watch that game, so I don't know if it was just kind of bad throws by Carr or what happened. But I'm fine trusting Waller moving forward. The Texans side, though, first off, just phenomenal touchdown pass by Deshaun Watson to Darren Fells. If you guys didn't see it, actually got kicked in the face, avoided getting sacked, it was a whole thing, but a phenomenal play by Watson. I think continues right now, in my opinion, to probably be the MVP of the league right now, right there with Christian McCaffrey and probably Aaron Rodgers. Watson goes 27 to 39 for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. Does get you 46 yards rushing as well to come in at QB2 with 40.5 points. Duke Johnson leads the way in points at the running back position, 1 yard on 3 carries, but does add 33 yards and a touchdown on 4 catches to come in as running back 20 with 13.4 points. Hyde, RB33 with 8.3 points, getting you 83 yards on 19 carries. Let's see here. DeAndre Hopkins continues to ball out, though. Wide receiver 8, 21.9 points, 109 yards on 11 catches. And then, as I mentioned, Darren Fellows caught a touchdown, actually catches 2 for 58 yards on 6 catches. Tied in 2 on the day with 23.8 points. I think Hopkins... If you're a Hopkins owner like I am, you're hoping that Will Fuller stays out, because it really feels like, and we saw this last year when Fuller goes out, this offensive passing game just funnels almost entirely through DeAndre Hopkins. When Fuller's in there, Watson definitely spreads it around, so you're hoping Will Fuller's hamstring is bothering him for a little bit longer, and you're hoping Hopkins gets to sit here and get all these targets once again. Darren Fells, I'm not necessarily buying into. I think it was just kind of one of those good games for him. But Duke seems to be getting a little bit more worked in this offense in the receiving game. Are you still buying Hyde over Duke? And then are you believing in Fells, or do you think it was just kind of one of those one-game wonder things?
I think we've seen Fells having a couple of games in here. I would kind of put him in the Gerald Everett category of tight ends. It's such a weird position. You know, I might almost rather have him or an Everett over like a Greg Olsen, who seems to have disappeared, or a Delaney Walker, who, you know, those guys are kind of rocking their names. But Duke Johnson, I think, is another beneficiary that we've seen kind of go up in targets and looks with Fuller out. It feels like it's benefited both Hopkins and Johnson over some of the other targets. So it's nice to see. I think their running backs are really going to be still a frustration week to week, because, I mean, obviously Duke Johnson didn't do anything rushing wise, and he hasn't been consistent every game in the passing game. So that's the tough part about playing him.
So big news just came across for college football. I'll touch more on this tomorrow when I do my college football stuff, but the NCAA has come out and said that they are now going to permit athletes to be compensated for their names, images, and likenesses. So that is a big deal. That is very close to the it's not pay for play like a lot of people think it is, but that's a big deal for college football, I think, and college football athletes. It would be interesting to see what comes of this moving forward. Just wanted to throw that out there. I will talk more about this, obviously, on tomorrow's podcast when we break down some of the college stuff. Let's see here. What else we got? The Sunday night game, which actually turned out to be a pretty good game between the Packers and the Chiefs. Packers winning 31-24 in this one. Aaron Rodgers continues to just light it up and be an MVP candidate. 23 of 33, 305 yards and 3 touchdowns, added 29 yards on the ground to come in as QB4 with 38.85 points. Aaron Jones dominates on the ground, but especially in the air. 67 yards on 13 carries, 159 yards on 7 catches, and 2 touchdowns to come in as RB1 with 41.6 points. Jamal Williams, RB11 with 18.6 points in this one. 22 yards on 7 carries and a touchdown, and added 14 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown. I hope you played both of them, as I told you guys to play both of them on Friday's podcast. Aaron Jones just, oh my God, he lit it up. It's going to be, that backfield's going to be semi-frustrating moving forward. And then Jimmy Graham kind of comes up short in this one. Tight end 22 with 5 points in this one. Just 3 catches for 20 yards. Wide receivers do absolutely nothing. So at this point, is it just Jones, Rodgers, and Williams until Adams comes back for you in this Green Bay offense?
Yeah, I think that's the case. And, you know, when Adams comes back, you're putting him out there, but they've shown you now they have 5 or 6 guys that are wide receivers that they like, and they're happy to throw to any or all of them, depending on the moment. You know, we've waited to see if Allison or MVS was going to establish themselves as a number 2 with Adams, or, you know, distance themselves without him. And now, I mean, you've seen last week, you saw a couple of big plays from guys. I think probably the least dependable one, shockingly to me, this whole season has been Allison.
Yeah.
You know, I'd almost rather Lazard or MVS, it seems like there's a better chance of something happening. But both running backs look good. I think they found a real comfort level there, both as pass catchers and as rushers. Jones is just a great weapon out of the backfield, so that feels like the real play there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I feel like it's hang on, breaking Browns news. Hang on. I'm with you on that. I think it's just Adams. As someone who owns Adams, I hope he comes back sooner. It did seem like he was getting closer to playing this week, or last week. So hopefully that means week 9 he'll be out there. But no real confirmation on his status. And then never mind on the Browns news. I thought it was saying that they were going to get Trent Williams. It's just saying that they're trying to trade for him, but doesn't look like a deal. It looks like a deal is not close to being done. So, on the Chiefs side, Matt Moore, 24-36, 267 yards and 2 touchdowns in this one to come in as QB12 with 28.98 points. Damian Williams, RB29 with 9 points, 30 yards on 7 carries and a touchdown. LaShawn McCoy, just 40 yards in this one with 9 carries. Tyreek Hill, 76 yards on 6 catches to come in at wide receiver 23 with 14.1 points. Mecole Hardman, wide receiver 25 with 13.5 points, gets the touchdown on 55 yards and 2 catches. And then Travis Kelce, a touchdown on 63 yards and 4 catches. Tight end 5 with 16.3 points. I know Hardman had himself a good day here, or mostly because of the touchdown. I think for me, until Mahomes comes back, which I know there was video of him, or he was out on the field throwing the ball around a little bit before games or before the game Sunday night and everything. I still think he's at least a week or 2 away. I just can't imagine he's going to be out there playing in week 9. So until he comes back, for me, it's still Kelce and Hill. I would not trust playing anybody else. I thought the running backs would be better, and they just were not against a Packers defense that was giving up a ton against the run as well. So that was even more surprising for me. What about you and your thoughts here on this? What's it called? I was going to say, what's it called? The Chiefs offense is what it's called. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs offense?
Yeah, and I know the Chiefs lost, but from what we saw from Matt Moore, he was by far not the problem. And if I'm Kansas City, you got to play the long game. You put Mahomes back in there against the Vikings this week, or before he's ready, and something happens, then he's gone for good. I think if I was a Chiefs fan or a Chiefs coach, what I saw from Matt Moore would have made me feel more comfortable that we should wait until we have the real Patrick Mahomes, because they have some pretty crucial games going down the backstretch, and their division is so bad that they're not really in any danger right now. From a couple other thoughts, I think Hardman has moved past Robinson.
Yeah.
We wondered, where they were at, but I think you can pretty well securely say that he seems to be number 3. I almost like him better than Watkins. He seems to be having more of the big play.
I love that you said that, because I agree
too.
with you.
Yeah. Running backs. So Damian Williams, I was ready to write his obituary. He had not gotten into the game at all. They had used Darrell Williams. They had used Darwin Thompson behind McCoy. And then LaShawn McCoy put the ball on the ground, and you never saw him come back. And Damian Williams all of a sudden goes in. That tells you that the running back situation is maddening. I actually posited in our Fantasy Life blog writers chat that if the Jets are serious about moving Bell, Kansas City would be an awesome destination for him, because he might solve all their problems. They could send the corpse of LaShawn McCoy back with a 2nd-round pick and say, bygones, Adam Gase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if they need to send a 2nd-round pick back, because they're going to take on a pretty decent salary. I know Bell's contract isn't that much this year, but his 2020 salary is a pretty decent hit against the cap, so they might not even have to send a pick back. Maybe a 3rd or 4th, just based on the salary. Almost a salary dump thing we were talking about earlier, taking on that salary from the Jets. But that would be interesting. Obviously, that would make a lot of fantasy fans kind of salivate there, seeing Le'Veon Bell go into that offense. I'm with you on Mahomes. I mean, he is the franchise. I know you want to win games now, obviously, but I mean, they're so, as you stated, that division just looks so bad. I mean, I don't even see Oakland. Oakland's the next best team, and I don't see them competing for a playoff spot. And then you have the Chargers and the Broncos, so I think you've got one game coming up that looks like it's going to be difficult, and that's the Vikings next week. I mean, Titans, Chargers, Raiders, I think are all winnable games. If you want, I mean, I would imagine by the Raiders, because they have the bye in between there, that that Mahomes might be able to come back. Titans and Chargers, with the way we've seen Matt Moore play the past 2 weeks, are winnable games. So I'm right there with you. I would hold Mahomes out until he is ready to come back. Maybe even hold him out of that Raiders game and have him come back that week against the Patriots, because I know a lot of people are talking about.
They have a bye week in there. Week 12 is their bye, so I
think right before the Raiders game
he would come back post bye. I still think that's probably for the best because he didn't have any major ligament damage, and I know he's a competitor. He wants to be out there, but you got to think about Super Bowl and not about can I win Week 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, well, I was bringing up the Patriots part because a lot of people are saying, well, they have to keep pace with the Patriots. Well, they've already lost 2 games. And I would say at best I see the Patriots losing 1 game this season. We already saw last year in the playoffs they can compete with the Patriots in their house. I mean, technically the Chiefs should have won that game last year in the playoffs. I mean, you don't have that offsides call or even that roughing the passer call that was not roughing the passer on Brady. The Chiefs beat the Patriots. The Chiefs know they can beat the Patriots, whether you're playing them in Gillette or in Arrowhead in the playoffs. They can win that game. I'm with you. I think you got to focus on making sure Mahomes is healthy, not just throwing him out there to try and keep pace with a team that you can probably beat in the playoffs. So,
well, and the Chiefs are 5-3, so they're a little ways back. Right. So, yeah. We've seen the North is probably no one's going to run away. 10 wins, I'd say, was probably a division winner between, Baltimore, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. You've seen the South has been really competitive, seesawing back and forth with the Colts and the Texans. You imagine 10, 11 is probably the win marker there. Those are the teams that Kansas City needs to keep an eye on. So even you drop one maybe to the Vikings, which I still think at home they could beat the Vikings without Mahomes based on what we saw. Their offense, didn't have a lot of problems. But even if you lose that one, you get teams like Tennessee or the Chargers are a mess. They've already beaten the Chargers once. I still think there's a clear path, even if you wait a few weeks for the Chiefs to get to 10, 11 wins. You should win your division. You're probably in strong position to get that first round bye, which at this point is probably all your best hope for.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just don't see any realistic way they catch the Pats. Last game, last night, the Miami Dolphins and the Pittsburgh Steelers was actually fairly interesting for at least till halftime. Miami took a pretty quick 14-0 lead. Then the Steelers went on and scored 27 unanswered points. On the Fins side here, Ryan Fitzpatrick, QB 21 with 20.5 points, 21 of 34, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, added 17 yards on the ground. Mark Walton, RB 42 with 6.4 points, 35 yards on 11 carries, and did add 19 yards on 3 catches. And then, let's see here. Devontae Parker, the last real relevant person, or wide receiver really, 59 yards on 6 catches to come in as wide receiver 33 with 11.9 points. Still love what I saw out of Preston Williams, 42 yards on 4 catches. Dolphins side here, I don't think anything's really changed. You're really not starting any of these guys, at least in my opinion. I liked some of what I saw out of Walton. I talked about it on the podcast yesterday. I'm not reading too much into this matchup with the Steelers defense being as good as it was. 3 yards of carries, not great, but not horrible. I want to see what he does moving forward. I would like I said yesterday, probably low end RB2 at best, but more likely a flex option moving forward. What are your thoughts on the Fins offense?
Yeah, I think Walton's a flex consideration, probably still Devontae Parker. It was a weird game. Preston Williams seemed to get off pretty quick. Had that 4 for 42, I think, early in the first half, and then nothing. They're rotating a lot of players. You saw Jakeem Grant out there. Alan Hearns catches a touchdown. Albert Wilson catches a touchdown. Balaj is out there. Gesicki's out there. They use 3 or 4 different tight ends. I was watching their player rotations. That, to me, is a fantasy nightmare, especially on an offense that's not high volume, that is high turnover. I thought a good sign for Walton is that he had that fumble and they went back to him and kept using him, so it shows they probably have a little bit of confidence. You didn't see him get yanked and Balaj come out on the next drive, so I took that as an encouraging sign, but, it's going to be a tough year for Miami.
Yeah, on the Steelers side here, let's see. So Mason Rudolph, while struggling in the first quarter, really kind of lit it up in the second half. Still struggled making some throws, but made JuJu relevant again, which I know made both of us happy. 20 of 36, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception to come in as QB 16 with 25.4 points. James Conner, RB 8 with 24 points. 23 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown. Did hurt his shoulder in this one, sprained AC joint. So we'll see what happens with that. Likely going to be out this week. Jalen Samuels dealing with an injury right now. They just have Trey Edmonds as their only viable back on the roster. As Benny Snell hurt his knee as well. So we'll be interesting to see what happens with them. But JuJu comes back as wide receiver 7, 22.8 points, 103 yards, 5 catches on 1 touchdown. I love seeing the 9 targets though. That was big for me. And then Deontay Johnson, really outside of his big touchdown play, doesn't do much, but 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown to come in as wide receiver 11 with 19.4 points. I talked about it when the Steelers went into the bye. I thought coming out this week, I know it was the Dolphins, but we needed to see if this offense could get clicking now with Mason Rudolph. I liked what I saw out of that game. I mean, I really feel like JuJu looked good again. Mason Rudolph was looking good. Are we buying into this? I don't want to say JuJu's back up into that wide receiver 1 territory, but are we feeling better about JuJu now moving into the back half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think based on what we saw, he could be a low-end wide receiver 2 going forward, which would be a step up. I actually liked Deontay Johnson too. Mason Rudolph just barely missed about a 60-yard touchdown to JuJu and did the same thing with Johnson in the second half. So, I like that they're taking shots. They had talked about the first few starts for Mason Rudolph. They had a graphic last night on Monday Night Football. His average depth of target was something like 6.5 yards, was just really poor. And last night, up 14, 15-yard depth of target mark. If they're going to go back to kind of trying to stretch the field and move the ball, I think that's some of what always made the Roethlisberger offense a little bit more imposing. So I liked what they did. James Washington, kind of a tough game, but it was nice to see him getting some more targets. Maybe he'll start to come back to life. Running game's going to be an interesting question. Samuels was actually questionable going into last night. They opted not to play him, but now going into next week, maybe their healthiest, best option to start, because it sounded like Snell might miss some time, and Connor, hard to trust with that shoulder. So kind of a bummer. You're finally seeing Connor and Smith-Schuster and these guys doing the offense that you were hoping you were going to get all season, and now might be missing one or more of the pieces.
Yeah, I think that'll be the biggest thing to watch is what happens now with Connor. I can't imagine he plays next week. Like I said, all they're showing right now that I've seen is that he has a sprained AC joint, but not really giving a timetable on that. We know when Jalen Samuels got hurt, they said it would be 3 or 4 weeks. So I think going into this week, it's week 3. So they might only have him out for 1 more week, but that'll be definitely something to watch here moving forward.
And they're a team, just kind of like Cleveland, that you should start getting excited about the back half. Maybe, they have Colts and Rams at home the next 2 weeks, then at Browns, at Bengals, home to Browns, at the Cardinals. Bills are a tough one, but then Jets and Ravens. You can score on those defenses. You can move the ball on those defenses. They're not facing, none of them are terrible defenses except for maybe the Cardinals and the Bengals, but none of them are truly elite defenses. So, slow start. Mason Rudolph, you have to remember, has only started, I think they said last night was his 4th career start. So a guy kind of working his way in, working his way up, learning the ropes. Last night, I thought we finally saw some things that could make you excited.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think obviously we need to hope that Rudolph stays healthy because it was just a concussion. It's not like I shouldn't say not a serious injury. It is a serious injury, but hopefully that doesn't happen to him again. I think JuJu, you're trusting in. Like I said, Deontay Johnson has definitely looked good the past couple matchups. I think obviously a lot of his points though came from that touchdown. It was like a 3rd and 20, I think is what it was, and he scored that touchdown. in my opinion, didn't do much outside of that, but still, they have gone to him a lot since Mason Rudolph has been in there, so worth watching. But as a JuJu owner myself, I'm excited from what I saw. I'm hoping that continues to move forward with him, because I'm going to need him to step up if I'm going to make the playoffs in a couple of my leagues. So, last bit of news that's come out, nothing concrete or anything, but it does look like Dallas is pushing very hard to try and get Jamal Adams. If they did that, I mean, my goodness, that would be a big deal for the Cowboys. So we'll see what happens there. As I said in the beginning of the podcast, me and Matt will be back on Thursday, and we will break down all of the trades that happen. We'll give you kind of our full analysis, because we'll have had a full day to kind of digest everything and go over what we think it means for fantasy. So I'm looking forward to talking to you on Thursday, Matt. Get home safe and enjoy the trade deadline, see if anything good happens, and I can't wait to talk to you on Thursday.
Yeah, maybe we'll just break down period when we have to talk about the Browns versus Broncos Super Bowl this weekend.
Yeah, I guess we do have to do that on Thursday. Way to bring down the mood, man. It just started raining here too, and now it's just like everything's just crashing down on me. I guess we can save that for the end of the podcast. We'll give a clear warning, be like, all right, everybody, if you don't want to hear depressing just sighs and everything, turn the podcast off now, and then we'll break down the game.
It'll be our blue period.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. All right, I will talk to you on Thursday. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
Prepare for glory!
I don't know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready? I came out the womb, I was ready. And he's hit the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump with me. Golly. Over the tackle at the 40-yard line. Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.99%, APR 4.08%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate subject to change. Pay 1.25% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
How do you keep your family healthy this season when it feels like everyone around you is getting sick? I use Sambicol. It's drug-free and scientifically tested to help support your immunity. Sambicol has the power of black elderberry in every purple bottle. It comes in tablets, syrup, chewables, or my kids' favorite, the great-tasting gummies. So this cold and flu season, support your family's immunity with Sambicol Black Elderberry. It's the only one I trust for my family. And best of all, my kids love it too.